Hi, everybody, and welcome to my little surprise for the holiday time, for Christmas, New Year's time. I've been wanting to do this new pillow. This is Let Me Call You Tweetheart that Kimberbell did. And I really wanted to do this, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and video myself as I'm making it because I would really like to do it. But I'd already had January planned since it's it's kind of a Valentine's thing. So I'm just going to video myself as I'm working on this. So hopefully I won't make too many mistakes. I apologize. I normally make everything in advance, before I make a video. But I decided to just wing it and try doing a video as I'm making this pillow. And there's only 6 blocks in it. There's 2 kind of larger ones over here, and then there's 4 up this side, so it's not too bad. And then there's the flanges and the borders, okay? So it's not too bad. So hopefully I'll be able to do this all right for you off the cuff. So we'll see how we do. Okay, so the first thing, I printed off my instructions here. Let me pull this video back just a little bit, or the camera back. And of course we need to cut out our pillow. Now this is going to be one of those 18 by 18 inch pillows that we've done before. So a lot of this isn't going to be information that's going to be very, very familiar to you. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the cutting. And there's not a lot of fabrics in here. So what I did with my fabric is I numbered it 1 through 9. I know that says there's 9, but like these 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 whites are just the background for the 6 blocks. And so they're all Kimberbell fabrics, and they were just different tone white on whites. You could use just one if you wanted to. I happen to have the ones that were in the picture, so I went ahead and cut mine out of all the different ones. There's 6 different ones. There's a brown, a red with the little cherries on it, and then there's one of their plain pinks. And then the borders and flanges are made out of a plain red and kind of it's a little floral pink. I didn't happen to have that, so I found one that was very similar to it. So anyway, when you cut these, you're just going to cut your fabrics, and we've gone through these before, so I'm sure that you can understand. We're going to cut the fabrics. It tells you how big to cut each one of the pieces, and then on the next page, this is page 6, 5, and 6 in the instructions. It shows you the cutting diagram so that you know how to cut your pieces out. Now, the one thing I would tell you to do not cut out your borders and flanges to the size that they tell you. What I did is I had yardage, so I cut out a 1.5 by width of fabric piece. So I cut 2, actually 2 for the border, 1.5 by width of fabric, so that I could quilt the entire border and then cut it to the right length. I would not tell you to cut it to the length they tell you because it may be a little short. So that's what I did, is I cut 2 pieces that were the width of the fabric by 1.5 inches. Okay, and then the flange, I did the same thing. I cut 2 that were 2.5. I'm sorry. Let's see. 2 that were 2.5 by the width of the fabric. So then I could cut my pieces down afterwards. If you only had like a fat quarter, then you would need to cut 4. You'd have to cut 4 pieces that were 2.5 inches wide. My backs were 13.5 by 22.5. Okay. So I like to do widths of fabric, and then I can just quilt the entire border and the entire flange, 2 of them, and then I cut them down as I'm sewing it together. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to you. All right, so then I cut all my fabrics, and I used my little grid over here on page 6. And then there was quite a few embellishments to this one, quite a few like glitter vinyls and some felt, some Mylar, some vinyl, some of the pink vinyl, and then there was some twine and some of the little pull flowers. So all of that is listed on page number 7, and it tells you what part it goes to, or what block it's going to go on. Okay, so I just cut these, and then what I did is I took my pieces and I looked at my charts here on page 5 and here on page 7, and then I put all of my pieces in my baggies by what they were for. So like I labeled this one Tree 1, and I have the backing and all the felt pieces, my Mylar, or I'm sorry, my glitter vinyl. There was some Mylar in this one, some felt. So I put all the pieces for the Tree 1 block in this bag, Tree 2, okay, and then there was some embroidery leather in this one too, okay, Tree 3 and Tree 4. All right, so I have them in, and then there was some little glitter. There was some like glitter, what do they call it? Glitter something or other, that you're going to use underneath this piece of vinyl here. So that was in Tree 4. So I have those. I cut all the pieces like it said, and there's really not a lot of fabric and a lot of pieces in here, so it didn't take me very long to cut it. But then I just put it in the baggies by the block that I'm doing, and I marked them. And then here's my borders and flanges and my backs. So my borders and flanges, I have two 2.5 by width of fabric pieces for my flanges, and two 1.5 by width of fabric pieces for my borders. So that way I can trim them to the appropriate size after I'm done quilting them. Okay, so here's all my borders and flanges and backs. And then there were 2 other blocks, second here. One of the blocks was just called Flowers, and that's the first one we're going to do actually. So I have that one already out here. It was just a background piece of fabric, and then it was these pull flowers. So we won't put these on until towards the end, but I put the pull flowers in with the block. And this is that little mini set that has the blue and the red flowers in it, and white. I think it's blue, red, and white. Yeah, blue, red, and white flowers. And then the other block was called Love Banner. And this one had felt in it, and I used felt. And I got my background piece in here, and there were supposed to be some buttons. There's a few buttons in it too. So I have that and some twine. Okay, so I have that all in this little envelope called Love Banner. So there was only 6 blocks in this, so it made it pretty easy to get it ready and cut. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. We've got that. I think most of you have done a few of these before, so you're not unfamiliar with how to cut these out and get them all kind of organized. Okay, now the one thing I will show you here is I'm going to hold this up, and I'll put a list of this in the description, but these are my Brother embroidery threads that I used, and there were quite a few threads in this one. There was like 14. So I used, I'm just going to go through them real quickly. I went with my pink. I used 1242 rose pink. The gold was pollen number 0332. My dark gray was dark gray 707. My red was 800 red. So that's what this one is, red. And these are all Brother colors. Then my teal was 1048. Teal ice is what they call this one. And then my hot pink was 0012 bright azalea. My light pink was 1002 bedtime pink. My light yellow was 0104 daffodil. And then I had my, let's see, light green was 027 fresh green. And then my brown is 0145 Nestle's. My tan, whoops, I just dropped it on the table here. My tan is 1141 shredded wheat. And my light blue is 1226 light blue is what it's called. And then my dark green is 515 moss green. So these are all brother colors, and I'm going to go ahead and put these in the description of the video so you have all the colors. And these were the colors. And what I do when I pick my colors, for those of you who are not sure how to do this, I just take my, my baggies with my colors, and I just match my colors of my fabric. When I look at the colors they asked for, like I needed a brown, so I matched my brown for my tree, and my red for my glitter vinyl, and my greens, I matched the greens for my green felt, okay? And then I matched this blue with the teal ice. So just match your colors of your fabrics. You may not have the exact same fabrics that I do, so just match your fabrics, and that's how I choose my colors. And then like when it asked for a couple colors of yellow, I just picked a darker yellow and a lighter yellow, like a gold and a yellow, okay? So that's the easy way to do this. I just use my fabrics to help me match my colors. Okay. So let's see here. Now this is going to be quilted in the hoop. So we're going to quilt these as we go, and then we'll sew the 6 blocks together. And this particular set is called Me Call You Tweetheart. And they did have a nice little, quilting set, like a little bundle that you could get for Let Me Call You Tweetheart. And it had, let's see, it had one called Floral 6 in it. And I think there were only 3, so there weren't a ton in this one. It was just 3 different designs, and this one was Animal 4, and then I think the other one was the Borders and Flanges. So I'm looking to see what it was called. I can't remember. I think the Borders and Flanges were called Border. It was Valentine 4, Border Valentine 4. So there was only 3 that you had to buy. Those are separate from the designs, so you can get those from kimberbell.com. I'll also post the affiliate link in the description below this video if you want to purchase the quilting designs. Now, you don't have to use those. You can use any ones you want. If you have other Kimberbell ones that are kind of Valentines or swirls or just pretty, you can certainly use those instead of using the ones that they call for here. But I just went ahead and bought the little set when I was buying the designs. So, okay, so I will use those in here. So we're going to start with the first block. I've got everything cut and bagged. We're going to be using, since we're going to be quilting this in the hoop, we're going to be using no-show mesh in the hoop. I looked at my first block, and my first block is going to finish 6 by 10. So it's going to be 6.5 by 10.5. So I have an 8 by 12 hoop in my machine. So we have to go up to an 8 by 12 hoop to do that. And I have my no-show mesh already in my hoop. And I have my background fabric here. And on the back of all your background fabrics, you want to put a piece of shape flex. So I have a piece of shape flex on the back of my background fabric. Okay. So that's what this little piece is, and we all have used this before. So this is shape flex. Looks like I have a little dark spot on there. I hope it isn't. Let's see if it's underneath here. Sometimes it's between my shape flex and my background. So sometimes I have to pull the background off of my shape flex to see if I got a piece of thread stuck in here. So we may do that, and then I'll stop the video for a second and I'll go re-iron this. Make sure I didn't get anything on my fabric. Sometimes I just get a dark spot on my fabric, so I'll go press that back down. But this, so I have shape flex on the back of my fabric. I have a piece of batting that I'm going to be using, and I'm using, I like to use Hobbs 80-20 batting in my embroidery because it's just got a little bit more loft to it, and I think it makes the quilting show up a little bit nicer. So I have that, and I've got white thread in my bobbin because I'm going to quilt first, and then I'm going to do the embroidery. So we're going to quilt first, and I'm going to do that in the white. So I've got white in my needle, and then I've got just plain embroidery bobbin thread in my bobbin. I am using a pre-wound bobbin in my bobbin. Okay, so I've got my pre-wound white bobbin in there. And then I just need to get my design. So give me a second. I'm going to stop the video while I go press this back on. I had a little piece of string, little piece of thread stuck in between there. So that's why I had a black mark on my fabric. So I'll be right back. I'm just going to stop the video for a moment while I go press that back on. Okay, so I got my Shape Flex pressed back onto my background fabric. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm kind of glad they've changed their instructions. So the block by block quilting method has a little bit of an instruction here that tells about what they used and how to place your design. So I'm kind of glad they've started doing that, because before that you kind of had to figure it out on your own. So we're going to choose our quilting design first. So I have all those on my stick over here. I'm going to do my, let's see, this one's going to be Floral 6. So I'm going to go to my stick, and I'm going to pick Floral 6 first. See, Kimberbell Quilting. I'm going to go find Floral 6. It's down here. I think they should be in, yeah, Floral 5, Floral 6. Okay. And then we're going to use the vertical design, and it says 6 by 10. So we're going to go to Embroidery Files, PES, and then we're going to use the vertical 6 by 10 is what it's saying in the instructions here. So let's go down to the 6 by 10. So this one's horizontal, this one's vertical. So we want 6 by 10, and I want the one that's going up and down this way. So we're going to hit that one. Okay, so it's got the little flowers going up and down, and that's what it looks like in the picture here too. Okay, so we've got our quilting design, so I'm going to set that. But then I want to choose my first design for my little pillow here for Let Me Call You Tweetheart, and it's called Flowers. So I'm going to hit Add on my machine, and I'm going to go back to my stick, and I'm going to find Let Me Call You Tweetheart and PES, and then I'm going to go down and find the flowers. Here it is, flowers right here. So it's this one right here. Let me call, yes, the words, let me call you. Yeah, this is it. So we'll find that one. Okay, so now what it says is align the placement lines of the embroidery file with the bottom and right edges of the quilting file. So I think what they're having you do, we're going to hit set. So the placement lines, if I can see it here, are going to be the first couple of lines that are going to, so let's hit the move button, and I think we're going to move this over so that the placement line, the edge of the design, is going to be on the right hand edge of the design and at the bottom, because we want that placement line would have been where we would have been trimming the design if we were doing it manually, and then we want it to be over to the right hand side. So I'm going to look also, it says align the placement lines, and that's what this line and this line are, of the embroidery file with the bottom and right sides of the quilting. Okay, so that says bottom and right sides of the quilting. So I'm going to look very closely at my book here. And it looks like to me it's actually where the quilting is. So we're going to move this over. So the quilting is where those placement lines are going to go. So the bottom is going to go on the, it's about 1/4 of an inch higher, because we want the, if you can see here, we want this and this to be pretty close to the edge, and then there's going to be a seam allowance in there. So make sure I'm reading it right. Align the placement lines of the embroidery file with the bottom and right edges of the quilting file. Okay, so to me, that would mean all the way out. But I want to make sure that nothing would be in the seam allowance. Actually, that would probably be right. So I had it right the first time. I think it needs to go, the placement lines need to be against the outside lines of the quilting, because see, then we're going to catch that the bottom of the leaves and the bottom of the flower in the seam line, and the tweet, the word tweet is going to be very close to the seam line, the very edge of it. And that's the way it looks in the picture here. Can you see that? So I think that is correct. So I think I had it correct the first time. It says, align the placement lines of the embroidery file with the bottom and right edges of the quilting file. So to me, that is, these are the placement lines here. And then that's the bottom right and the bottom. Okay, the right and the bottom. So I think that's the way we want them. Like that. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to go check also. Sometimes what helps me to know is that when I look at the cutting file, and you can see in the cutting side where they're cutting is there's just a little bit of a space. Can you see here between the T? So there's our 1/4 of an inch. So I think that is correct. You can see in the cutting information. Okay, so like here's the bottom and here's the side. So I think that's correct. I always have to check these because they do these differently every time they make a pillow, and sometimes I have to make sure I get it right. So that looks right, I think. Embroidery file with the bottom and right edges of the quilting file. So I think that's correct. Okay, so I have the placement line here and the placement line here, and then we're going to catch the bottom of that flower in the seam allowance and just about catch the T in the seam allowance, but it's just on the left side of it. Okay, all right, so I think that looks right. All right, then we're going to hit embroidery, and it looks real good with the picture here. That's why I like to do these in advance to make sure that I do them correctly, but I think that is correct. Remember when, like when you trim these and do these quilted traditionally, you know, everything is different because they do all these placement lines, and then you have to trim it on those placement lines. But see here, we have to move the design to fit in the right spot with the quilting on it. So that's what we're doing here. Okay. So let's look at the instructions. I think we've got everything on here. I've got the files loaded. The first thing, of course, is going to be our quilting. So these part of the instructions here are not pertinent yet. We're going to be working on the quilting first. So the first thing that's going to sew out, I'm going to take my fabric out of here. Okay. First thing that's going to sew out, and this is the way all of the quilting designs work. The first thing that sews out is going to be the placement line for the placement line for the batting. So we're going to get a chunk. I just got chunks of batting. Now I don't, if you need to have the instructions for the quilting, those come with the quilting design. So make sure that you print those out also if you need them. But I have them printed out in a book just so I know which ones I have, but I don't usually use them anymore because I know they always start with the batting placement line. Now I do not cut. It tells you to cut your batting to certain sizes, and I don't cut my batting. I just use chunks of batting. Now I happen to have some that I had cut for another project that I didn't need, so I am just going to flop this chunk up here. I don't think this one's long enough this way. Oops, here. I don't think it's long enough this way though. Nope, I have to put it this way. I'm just going to flop this up here. I have to trim them anyway, so I don't take all that time to cut all this batting. So I'm going to go ahead, and step number 2 is always the tack down. for the batting. I'm just using my white thread for this. Looks like I got some cat hair on my batting. So we're going to try this and see if I can do this and get it. And so you understand what I'm doing. I've never made this before, so I'm doing this with you. So hopefully we'll get along okay and you'll understand what I'm doing. Once I get started, I'm usually fine. It's just getting started sometimes that's hard. I'm just going to go around this twice. I kind of looked through the blocks and they don't look very hard. So, and there's only 6 in this one. So I thought, well, that'd be a fun between Christmas and New Year's project. This is actually Christmas Eve of 2022. I'm sitting here at home in the quiet, and I thought I would sew with my friends tonight. So we're gonna trim our batting then after we tack it down. Okay, so we're going to tack that down. Oops, or we're going to trim it, I'm sorry, after we tacked it down. I like to use these double curved scissors. These are my Gingers. I think I'm going to have to get a new pair. They're starting to get pretty dull. And you know, I've tried, I've actually contemplated having them sharpened, but you know, it costs so much to have them shipped to places to have them sharpened because there's nowhere around here that sharpens this type of scissor. It's actually cheaper just to buy another pair of scissors. So I usually do. All right, so there is my batting trimmed. Now the third step of all of these quilting designs is going to be the placement line for the fabric. So we're doing the plate. Whoops, here. I evidently didn't. Second, let's start here. It decided it wasn't going to catch. So when that happens, sometimes what happens is sometimes your bobbin just doesn't catch. I'm just going to pull that out and reset my bobbin. And then I'm going to rethread my machine. So if something like that happens, always rethread the entire machine, because usually it's the exact opposite of what you think it is. So I would have thought maybe it was the bobbin, but it was probably the top. So I'm just going to back up. I'm going to hit the negative positive needle over here. I'm going to back up a whole color so we can do our placement lines. Let's see if it'll sew better for us this time. Let's see if it's happier now. I notice this more happening when I'm sewing on just batting. I think it's just because there's so little that the machine's actually sewing on. Okay, there we go. That's working fine now. All right, let's see here. This is really cute. So all of these backgrounds were different, every one of them, and you can do all the same if you want. I just did what they said, so mine are all different. There's 6 different ones. And they're all like the white tone on tones. So then what we're going to do with our backing piece, and I've got my shape flex on the back too. I'm going to lay this down and center it as best I can. Okay, and then we're going to sew the tack down line. That's always step number 4 of the quilting designs. So I don't really need the quilting design instructions anymore. I always know what the order is now. But I do print them out to put them in a book so that I know which ones I have. And I don't cut out the batting that they say to cut because it's just too much work. Okay, so that's step number 4. Step number 5 is always going to be the quilting. So the actual quilting is going to happen now. So I'm going to start this. It's going to be our flowers. I'm just leaving the white in. And this is going to be our flowers. Boy, this one had quite a lot of stitches. My goodness. 24,000 stitches. So it's going to start out and do our quilting. And I may go ahead and pause the video for a little while while this quilts, because it's going to take just a little while. There's quite a lot of detail in this quilting design. It has flowers and then leaves all the way up, and they're all like little columns. So I'll turn it back on when it's done so you can see the whole thing. Okay, so we got the background all quilted. Isn't that pretty with all the flowers in the columns? So it took quite a little while to do that, actually. It was like 11 minutes. My goodness. Okay, so whoops, gotta grab my book here. So the next steps in this instructions are, like if you were going to quilt it traditionally, so it has like a placement line, and then you have to, put your fabric in there and get it all folded up just right. But see, we've already attached all that stuff. So, and we've moved the design to the correct position in the hoop. So all we have to do now is we're going to skip to from the bottom page 9 to the top of page 10. So now we're ready to start sewing. So I'm going to go over here on my screen, and I'm going to skip through a few of these steps. It's step number 1. So we're going to go through step number 1, and then step number 2 is actually going to be starting the stitching, because we've already got our placement correctly, our design placed correctly in the hoop. So okay, so the first step, then the next step, number 2 in the instructions, is going to be my let's see. Oh, it's going to be the little flowers. So mine's going to be the lighter green. So I'm going to switch over to my fresh green, number 027, for the first set of leaves. So we'll go ahead and get that in here. And I still have just my bobbin thread in the bobbin. Just threading the machine here. And I'll move the camera again. All right. So now we're going to sew out our leaves. And then the next one's going to be kind of the rose pink. So we're going to start making the petals on our flower. The petals are real pretty. They're all different colors of pinks and red. So we're going to start with rose pink. So that's this one. That's the next color. And then we're going to do kind of a hot pink. My azalea, bright azalea. And then the light pink. Let me get all my pinks out here. And then the red. So here's my red. So here's all the colors in our flower. So we're going to put these all in after we get done with the stem. Okay, so there's our stem. And isn't that pretty? With it looks like it almost looks like rickrack. And then it's going to do some leaves, yeah. This is going to be really cute. I like that. So see, this is going to be caught in just the bottom of the seam allowance there, so just so it catches that and doesn't show a raw edge. So it looks really good. Hopefully I have remembered to put my right bobbin case in. I do. I've been sewing earlier, so just regular sewing. And like I said, this is Christmas Eve. It's about 5:30 on Christmas Eve of 2022. And I didn't really have anywhere to go tonight, and it's so terribly cold outside. I'm happy to be in where it's warm. And so I decided to spend my evening with my sewing buddies, even though you're not on the other end. I'm sure you're all busy with your families and having Christmas and everything with your families. So Merry Christmas to everyone. But I thought we needed to have a little Valentine's Day a little early. So I thought we would start working on Let Me Call You Tweetheart. So, okay, so I'm going to let this finish up, and then I'll come back and we'll get ready for the first set of leaves. Okay, so there's our little stem. Isn't that cute? It looks like rickrack. And then the first leaves, and then the first set of petals is going to be the rose pink. So let me see, rose pink. That's the little bit darker one here. Find that, rose pink. It's this one. And then we're going to do the first 3 leaves of our little flower. Now this one's going to have some fringe in it too. So the middle section that's yellow is going to be fringed. So we'll put our rose pink in and do the first set of petals. get them started here, and then I'll probably stop the camera a little bit during this so that the video doesn't get too long. We're going to do three blocks tonight. So this first video is going to be the first 3 blocks, and then there's only 6. So I thought I'd do 3 blocks and then do 3 more. And then we'll do the borders and flanges, and then we'll put it together. So there'll be 4 videos to make this little pillow. I just needed to do something besides Christmas. I love Valentine's Day, and it's always so much fun to make Valentine's gifts and Valentine's things with all the pretty pinks and reds and everything. So that's what I'm working on. So, oh, this is going to be a decorative stitch. This is really pretty. It's like a motif stitch. All right, so there's our first set of petals, and they even had like a programmable fill in there. It's really pretty. And then the next color is the bright azalea. So we're going to do that darker kind of hot pink in here, and maybe that'll be a programmable fill too. So you guys get to see this at the same time I do. I haven't done this one before. I just got the design maybe a week or so ago, and I just thought it would be a fun between Christmas and New Year's project. All right, so we're going to start with this is step number 9 in the instructions. And that's actually, believe it or not, they're matching on the machine, which is unusual. So now we're going to do the bright azalea. Looks like it might be a programmable fill too. Looks really pretty. Yep, it's going to be another programmable fill for the fill. So these do take a little while to stitch out when they have that extra fill in there. So looks like each one might be different though. Okay, so we're just finishing the second set of petals, and I think the third set of petals is done with the light bedtime pink. So this is a real light pink. So we'll put that one in. See if I can keep from throwing my threads all over the floor here. So here's bedtime pink. And then I think the last one's going to be red. And again, these are really pretty with the programmable fills. I like those. But it does make it take a little longer to stitch out that way. This whole design was about 40 minutes. So I'm trying to keep it cut down a little bit. I'm going to turn the video off while it's doing some of the stitching. So it's getting started on the third set of petals with, another programmable fill. So that's really cool. And then I'll be back in a moment when this set is done and we're ready for the last set. Okay, so we're ready for the last set of petals, and these are going to be in the red. And this is step number 11 in the instructions on page 10. So I'm going to put my red thread in here now. And the next steps are going to be done they're going to be fringed. And so I'm going to try something this time. I looked everywhere. I thought I had some water-soluble bobbin thread or some water-soluble thread, and you can get that water-soluble thread to put in your bobbin for the next steps for the fringing, but I couldn't find it anywhere. So I am going to try doing the darker thread for the bobbin when we go to put that in, just so you can see it a little bit better. They always say to do that, and I've always just used white. But I think we're going to try that this time, and I'll put some black bobbin thread in there and see if I can see it better. So here's our last set of petals for the flower, and then we'll start working on the center, which is going to be fringed. Okay, so there's all of our petals for a flower. Isn't that pretty with all the different colors of pink and red? So the next step is going to be this fringed part. So it says to change the bobbin to a water-soluble thread or a visible color. So I'm going to try doing the visible color this time just to see if that helps me with the fringing. I've always struggled a little bit with fringing. But what I want to do also, I'm going to put some black bobbin, just regular black bobbin thread in. But I think what I'm going to do, while I've told everybody about this before, I am using the tighter bobbin case with my pre-wound bobbin because I use pre-wound bobbins, the one with the dot in it. But I think just to make it a little bit looser, I'm going to put my black in my regular bobbin case. I'm just going to put my regular one that I normally use sewing thread in with the green painted screw. I'm going to put that in and see if that maybe makes that a little less tight so I can see where my bobbin threads are. Be easier to do the fringing. So let's give this a try. I'm going to use the black for that. And then we'll switch back to the white again. So just a second here. I'm going to get my other bobbin case down. So I'm just going to do this just to see if this makes any difference, because this is something I thought I'll just do a little experiment since we're experimenting tonight. So, all right. So the first step is going to be some fringe. And this one is going to be done in yellow. So this is my daffodil, my lighter yellow. So I'm going to get my lighter yellow here and put that in my needle, but I put my standard bobbin case with my pre-wound, which I normally don't do. I just wanted it to be a little looser. And this is going to be for the fringe. If you have some of that water soluble, you could put that in here at this point, because that's where the fringe is going to be. I just didn't have any. I thought I had some and I looked all over, but I couldn't find it. So let's try this with the black bobbin thread and see if this makes it a little bit looser so I can see it a little bit better. Because then the next step, they tell you to go back to your neutral thread with the yellow, because what it is, it's like a trapping stitch that holds that fringe in place. So we're going to put this bobbin case back in with the white, the regular bobbin, the regular pre-wound bobbin in it. But I was hoping maybe this would be just a little bit looser so I could see the bobbin thread a little bit better. And I might have been able to use my white also, but I thought maybe the black would be easier to see with the light color. So we'll see how this goes. We'll try something new tonight. I like the yellow. I could have gone maybe a little bit lighter. I kind of was trying to pick some pretty yellows I hadn't used too many times, so this one was one that I hadn't used many times. I'll turn this over when we get it out of here, because we're going to replace the bobbin case too. Now, if you're not using pre-wounds, you don't need to replace your bobbin case. The reason I did, though, is because I just thought it might make that light enough that it would be easier for me to see the bobbin thread for me to trim through it. So let's turn this over and see what it looks like. Let's see. Oh yeah, see, you can really see the black and see how it made it just a little lighter color, or looser, so I can get my my seam ripper in there. So I kind of like that. Okay, so then it says to go back to, your kind of standard thread, because we have to do this trapping stitch and we want it to be nice and tight. So I am actually going to pull that bobbin case out, put the regular tight one back in with my white bobbin thread that I usually use, my pre-wound bobbin. So I just wanted you to see that there are some ways you can kind of trick this to working the way you want it to. There we go. And put my bobbin back in. And this is just my regular pre-wound with the white bobbin thread. But I do have to put my tight bobbin case in now, because it just doesn't sew as well unless I do. So this is going to be like a trapping stitch that's just going to go up along this inside edge here. And then we're going to do one more with the other bobbin case yet. So let's try that and see what happens. This is going to be nice and tight, and it's what holds the thread from coming completely out. So you do want that to be nice and strong. The reason they take out the, so like they put if you're using the water soluble, you use it for the step we just did, and then you can just dissolve the bobbin thread away. I just don't, like I said, I just don't have any. I'm going to get some and try it, though, on something that we're doing. Okay, so there's the trapping stitch. So we're going to go back to the black bobbin thread in the regular bobbin case to do the center part that's going to be fringe. So that's what it says to do, is, change back to your water soluble or your visible thread. So I'm just going to take the whole thing out here, if I can get a hold of it. We put the black back in with the looser bobbin case, just to make it just a little easier to see. And you can see it doesn't take long to do this. I change bobbin cases all the time, and I'm used to it now. At first I was hesitant to have to change the bobbin case, but it works better to do that. So okay, so we're going to do that one, and this one's going to be the second part of the fringing for this. So it's going to do another fringing section, and then we're going to switch back to the tighter thread and the white again. So there was 2 sections of fringe on this. And I think it will be easier to see when I go to do the fringing with the black. I've always just used white. When I started making fringe, I've always just used white thread. And you can see it pretty well, but this is going to be a lot easier. So there's the center section. And then there'll be like a center little thing that'll hold everything together. And we'll change the bobbin case and the threading. That's going to be really pretty. Okay, so there's that. And so I'll take this out and we'll just replace put the tighter bobbin case and then my white bobbin thread back in. There we go. So I'll put this black bobbin up here in case we have to do any more fringe. Okay, so I'm putting my tighter bobbin case in. This is my one I use with my pre-wounds normally. Okay. Put my white pre-wound back in here. So you can see it doesn't take very long to switch things out. Okay. And then this is going to be like the trapping stitch in the center to hold everything together. And then we're going to go on to the, let's see, put this up here. So then we're going to go on to the leaves. There's going to be more like stems and leaves over here, and then we're going to put some of those pole flowers on later. So that'll be the next one. Okay. So there's the trapping stitch in the center. It just holds everything together so nothing will fall apart. There's like a little spot in the center. All right, so the next step is number 16 in the instructions, and this is the darker green, so I'm going to put in my moss green to do the other set of leaves and stems here. All right, I really like that flower. That's going to be really pretty. I'm anxious to try the fringing, see if it's easier. All right, so here's our stems and leaves for the 2 pole flowers that we'll do probably at the end. Okay, so here's our, I don't know if you can see it, I'll pull this back a little bit. So there's the leaves and stems in the darker color. That'll be where the pole flowers are going to be. And now we're on to some lettering, and this is the Let Me Call You. And there'll be a little swish down here, and this is done in the dark gray. So I think this is just like some, oh, it's straight stitch lettering. So this will be pretty quick probably. Some triple stitch lettering. And then the next part will be the word tweet, and that's going to be in pink. I think that might be in the rose pink. And then we'll do, oh, and then some white also because it's got some stitches in the center. So this is going to be Let Me Call You, and then there'll be a swish here, and then I'll come back and show you the word, get started on the word tweet. Okay, so I've got my lettering in here, Let Me Call You, and then the little swirl, and then the next color is going to be the word tweet, and that one is going to be rose pink. So I have that, the rose pink in, and we're going to sew out the word tweet, and then there is a little decorative line stitch in it that will be white. Really cute. I'm anxious to try the fringing here, so we'll try that on the camera too. All right, so there's the word tweet, and then they put a real cute little like straight stitch or a triple stitch down the center of it. So we're going to go ahead and switch to white. So this is step number 19, and then this was going to go down through the middle of our pink there. Just give it a little decorative stitch. All right, so there we go with that. that'll be real cute through it. Just gives a little bit of a flare. I always like it when they put the little straight stitches down through the center. They kind of do like a little triple stitch. That's real cute. Except I've got a couple little tails I'm going to have to trim over here. My machine's been leaving tails lately. I don't know why. That looks really cute. Go over the W. And then I think the next step is actually going to help us with the trimming. It's going to be like they just told you to put a visible color in so that it helps you with the trimming on the side. So I think I'll go ahead and do that. And that's the last step in this design. I'm going to use, I think I'll just use the dark gray because it's real visible, then I can see it. Let me go to do the trimming. And I'll show you the trimming too. It's just about done with the little decorative stitch. It does a real small little like triple stitch. Very short stitches. And then we'll also do the fringing on the back. And trim, so. All right, and then do the tops of the T's. It's almost done. There we go. So the last step is going to be the last step is just going to give us a little help with the trimming here, with some trimming lines. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in my dark gray again so we can stitch that out. And then we'll trim our block. So this will help us with the trimming. Okay. There we go. And this is step number 20. Step number 21, it says do not stitch this step. These lines are for design placement. So the very last step we're actually not going to trim. Or we're not going to stitch, I'm sorry. But we are going to stitch number 20. This is 20, and then 21 we're not going to stitch. But that's just going to help us with it gives us a little mark for the centering and stuff. So that'll help us to get it trimmed. And then the next step we'll do, give me a moment, I'm going to switch my camera over and I will get the camera ready to show you the trimming. So there's our little placement lines. And then the last step, you don't stitch, step number 21. Okay, so we're going to do the trimming on this block. There's quite a lot of specialty instructions on this one. So it says to use the 6.5 by 8.5 block, and or I'm using the orange pop ruler, sorry, and then the 8.5 by 10.5. So I got both of those, and we're going to put them together because we're going to use both of these because this is going to end up being 6.5 by 10.5. So what it says to do is to align the right trimming guide with the inner edge of the 6.5 by 8.5 ruler. Align the tick mark in the trimming guide with the center mark on the ruler. So if you look on the rulers, it's hard to see a little bit, but there's actually a little center line. It's you probably can't even see it on the camera. It's just a little arrow, and that's the center. So that is going to be where this tick mark's going to be. So that's why I put my glasses on so I could see it. It's very difficult to see. Okay, so we're going to get that lined up with that. Let's see here if I can get it. It's right there. So I think that looks pretty good. Okay. All right, so we got that lined up. And then it says to align the bottom trimming guide between the rulers. So down here, let me push this up just a little bit so you can see it. Down here where that other alignment is, it's going to be in between the rulers. So you can kind of see that my black line's in between the two rulers here. So I think we got it pretty well lined up. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that this is straight. That looks pretty good. Okay. Then it says cut the left and right edges. Do not cut the bottom and the top. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and take my rotary cutter. And remember, I'm left-handed, so I'm going to use my my Martelli roundabout. I'm going to tip it towards me to the right because I've got my left hand here. And I'm going to be cutting on the inside. So we're just going to cut along the sides, not the bottom and the top yet, okay? So I'm going to kind of start up a little bit and pull back into the corner at the bottom. and push upward to the other corner. Then I'm going to turn it around and do this on the other side, the same thing on the other side, but I'm not trimming the top and the bottom yet. Okay, so I'm just going to lay this down up here, and then it says to remove the 6.5 by 8.5 inch ruler. So we're going to take that one out, and it says cut the top and bottom edges of the block. Do not cut the left and right edges. So now we're going to use this top and bottom. We're going to trim the top and bottom now. Okay, so I'm going to turn this, and I'm going to do the bottom. I don't know if you can quite see me here. Sorry. I wish I could push this up just a little bit more. There we go. It's a little hard to get the camera just right for these because this ruler is long. Okay, so I'm going to trim along the bottom. I'm kind of starting up and pulling back into the corner and pushing forward. Then I'm going to roll my mat around, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And we're just doing the top and the bottom. We're not doing the sides this time. Okay, and then we're going to remove this ruler. And then we need to connect the lines on the ends, because remember we have this little space here. So I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler here and see if I can get it straight. I have a hard time getting these rulers lined up. I do better with a standard ruler, but I forgot to bring it over here. So let's see if I can get this lined up here. And we're going to connect the dots here. Do the sides. And do this side. Get this one done. Like that. And like this. A couple of inches. It's about an inch, I guess. There we go. All right, so there's our first block, and we're going to do this. Let's do the fringing. I'm going to turn the video off for a second so I can sit back down again. But then does it say anything about turn the block over, and we're going to do that. And then I think this little piece should be in the seam allowance, this little tick mark right here, so it shouldn't show. But we're going to do the fringing in a minute, so I'm going to sit back down. But isn't that pretty? I like that. And you can see that dark bobbin thread, so that did help. So we'll go ahead and I'll turn the camera off for a moment while I sit back down so we can work on the fringe here. Okay, so let's do the fringing. I think this is really going to help with the black on the back. So the fringe cutting lines are going to be, let me get the book so you can see a little bit. It gives you a nice little picture here in step number 29, the two little areas right here around the outside edge, and then there's an inside edge. So there's two that we're going to trim through. So I'm just going to take my seam ripper, and I'm going to go underneath those black bobbin threads. I like that worked real well to use the black, because then I can see it better. I've always struggled with fringe. I can't always see where I'm trimming. And I really think that the water soluble would be really nice to try. I will get some, and we'll try that in one of in another project that we do fringe. They do fringe quite often. So all right, so I'm just going around this outside one. Let's see if I can get around it here. I'm just using a standard seam ripper. You do want it to be pretty sharp because it's hard to get down in here, so long ways around this one. Okay, but boy, I could really see the black a lot better. It helped. I've always struggled with this, and you know, sometimes it's just easier than others to see, you know, where the bobbin thread is. It depends on the design sometimes. Okay, so we're all the way around that one. I think I got all the way around. See, might be a couple spots down here I missed. Sometimes I have to go back and get some of the little bobbin threads. And then I'm going to do the center one too. So let's do the center one. And I think it helped me, since I used that tighter bobbin case with my pre-wound. It seems like it's not as tight, so I am able to get my seam ripper in there just a little bit easier, because it's not, you know, the bobbin thread wasn't so tight then. And I can see it a little bit better. There we go. Ugh. Still little spots that are hard to see though, aren't there? Okay, I'm getting around here. All right, so let's try it from the front. So I usually start, it does say recommend starting in the center. So I'm going to take the back of my seam ripper and just work on the center section and loosen those stitches up. May have to go back through and trim again. I don't think I got everything loose. There's a lot of stitches in here, so these may be harder to loosen because they have, you know, there was all that programmable filled petals under there, so it might be a little hard to loosen the stitches. Let's make sure I got all the bobbin threads trimmed. I don't think I got through all of them. Okay, so let's see. Sometimes I'm just going to try my fingernail this time. Maybe that'll work better. Oh yeah, that's working better. Getting them loose. Okay, so there's some of them. I'm getting there. Let's see, there's up at this top part. I'm having a little trouble over here. So let's see if I got all the bobbin threads loose in the center there. It's coming. Yeah, this one's got a lot of thread. There's a lot of stitches underneath there, so it's making it harder. I'll put my foot up so this fits under here a little bit better. There we go. That's coming, starting to come out now. There we go. Making some progress now. I usually just use the back of my seam ripper, but this seems to be working better with my fingernail tonight. This one's pretty stiff with all those stitches under there. Might have to do a little bit more seam ripping yet. It's coming though. Let's see what we got back here. We might have some spots here that I didn't get everything ripped. Ooh, my goodness. There's just a lot of stitches back here with that programmable fill. So the fringing stuff went through there. And there it's coming. It's starting to come loose now. Let's see if I got it better now. And then a little spot that didn't come loose. Better. But you can see better with that black in there. But I think that I'm going to try that water soluble. I think it sounds interesting. Okay, let's see if we can get it to come loose now. But the goal is to get all those little pieces loose underneath here. So I'll work at it a little bit, and then I'll turn the camera back on after I've worked at it a little bit more, because they're being a little bit cantankerous here. So I'll turn the camera off for a minute and I'll work at it a little bit harder. Okay, I've been working at this a little bit longer. That looks much better. Isn't that pretty? And it's all nice and fringed, and it's nice and full. So yeah, that worked nice with the black bobbin thread. I was able to see better what I was doing, but I'm definitely going to try that water soluble. I think that'll be fun. So there's our first block. Let me call you tweet. And then I think the next block, oh, and this is the one that the pole flowers go on right over here, but we'll put those on at the end when we're putting it together. So the two pole flowers go over here. Oops, I got some black bobbin thread up here, don't I? And then the next block is going to be one of the tree blocks. So I'm going to go ahead and get set up for the block number 2, which is tree block number 1. Okay, so we're going to move on to the second block here. So this one's called Tree 1. And looks like we've got some appliques with the little tree branches. And then we've got some hearts and some Mylar and a little bit of glitter vinyl here, and then some leaves that are made out of felt. So I've got my felt and all my little pieces here. Okay, so I'm going to lay these over on the side so I don't lose any of those little pieces. And this one is going to be done with the background. Oh, I wonder what happened to my background here. Just a moment. I have to find it. I left my background up on the ironing board. I was going to iron it. So I think I'm going to still use my 8x12 hoop because this one says that it is going to be 6x10. And then the design and quilting design that we're going to use is going to be 4x10. So I'm going to stick with my 8x12 hoop, I believe. And the first thing we're going to do then is get our designs. So let's do this one. So this one was done with Animal 4. And the quilting design is the 4x10. So let's go find Animal 4 in the quilting design. So I have all of my quilting designs on here under Kimberbell Quilting and Animal 4. Animal 3, Animal 4. And then this one is the 4x10, it says. So we're doing block by block, not clear blue tiles. So we need the batting lines. That's really the only difference in the designs. Oh, look, it's got the little bird on it. So this is the little birdie. So 4x10, let's see here, 4x4, 4x10. Here it is right here, 4x8, 4x10. Here we go. So we need that one. And I'm going to set that. And then it says to bring up tree 1. So we're going to hit the add button down here. And I'm going to find my tree 1 on my stick in Me Call You Tweetheart. So let's see here. Here's the tree 1. It must be this one. Looks like this one, doesn't it? Yeah. All those little small branches. So this must be the top of the tree. So it's this one here. Okay. And then it says, let me get my fabric out of the way here. It says that align the block embroidery file with the quilting design file so that both files are centered. So in other words, where it comes up, the blocks, the machines are Baby Lock and Brother machines, bring up the design centered automatically. So I'm just going to leave it right where it came up, because it came up, I brought up my quilting design and then I brought up my embroidery design. Make sure I got the right one. It looks right here. It's hard to tell because it's kind of sideways. It looks like it's the right one though. Yep. Okay. So that must be number 1. So we'll do that, hit set, and then embroidery. And this one has, yeah, this one's not going to be as long. So that's good. So it's 4, it ends up being 4.5 by 10.5, if you can see up here. So that's why I'm going to stick with the 8x12 hoop on this one. Okay. So the first step is going to be, we're going to be doing the quilting first. So I've got my batting ready here and my first pieces of fabric. Gotta find my batting. Okay. So of course our normal batting routine here, the first step for the quilting is always going to be the batting placement line. So I'm going to go ahead, whoops, I guess I have the wrong color thread in. We're going to use white to embroider or to quilt this again. So let me get my white thread in here. I forgot we had to do the quilting first. So we'll get the white thread. And then the first step will be the batting placement line. So I got my chunk of batting here, okay, ready for to lay it down over my placement line. And then I'm going to do the trimming. Okay, so we'll do the batting placement line first. Lay the batting down and then it'll tack it down. Well, this looks really cool. So there's a little bit of applique in this, and then the rest of it is sewn. And then there's quite a few little decorative hearts and stuff, and then and little leaves that are going to be applique. So this would be a fun one. This has a bunch of little fun things to do. All right, so there's our first one. So there's our placement line. I'm going to lay my batting down over the top, and then it's going to tack the batting down. So this is always the same way that all the quilting designs go. The first two steps are the batting, and then we'll do a placement line for our fabric, kind of holding it down. But it's so much faster if you don't trim the fabric out to the size they say. It just, you still have to trim it whether you cut it out or not, because they always cut it a little bit too big. So I was trimming it anyway, and I'm like, well, that seems kind of silly. So I'm just going to lay chunks on, because I've always got batting scraps laying around. So, but I thought in the first video here, I'd do the first 3 blocks. So I'm going to, we just did the first one, and then this will be the second one, and then there'll be another piece of the tree that we'll do. And then in the second video, we'll do the last 3 blocks. So maybe I'll do those tomorrow for you. Thought this would be fun, so I thought I'd get a couple of the videos put up, and then work on the last couple. So, okay, so now we're going to trim this. Trim the batting here, and then we're going to do the placement line for the fabric. Now on the back of my fabric, I have put my shape, I've ironed my shape block, so I'll show that to you when I bring it up here. And that's I had left my background fabric laying over on the ironing board because I was going to press it because it got kind of wrinkled when I put it in the bag. All right, get this trimmed. You definitely need some new scissors. Should have bought myself some new scissors for Christmas because my scissors are really getting dull. I trim so many odd things though. Okay, so now the next step, step number 3, is always going to be the fabric placement line. So we'll do the placement line. I'm going to get my fabric ready here. And this was a different white tone on tone. There was like 6 different ones, but certainly you could use the same one if you wanted. I just had them because I had a bunch of little back quarters and stuff, so I just used the ones that I had. So, all right, so now we're going to lay our backing piece down, and again, it has the shape flex on the back. And I'm going to lay this down over my batting, as centered as I can get it here. I think it needs to come that way just a little bit. There we go. Okay, and then we're going to tack that down. And that's step number 4. This one's going to have all kinds of little appliques and all kinds of fun little stuff in it. It has quite a few steps in it, but it doesn't take very long. So I think most of the little steps are just some small appliques. Looks like I need a new needle. I may have to put a new needle in. All right, so then step number 5 of the quilting is always the actual quilting. So I'll go ahead and let this quilt. It's going to do the little birds. It looks like little birds on like twigs of trees. So I think it's going to be real cute. And then I will turn the camera back on when we're ready to move on to the next step. So off it goes to do the quilting. Okay, so it just finished the quilting. It's really cute. It's like the little twigs, and I don't know how well you can see it, but the little birdies are standing on the twigs. Isn't that cute? I like that. Okay, so then the next step is going to be, we're going to actually start into the design now. And so the first step in the design is going to be the branches. So part of them are actually just stitched and part of them are going to be appliques. So we're going to stitch these first. And I chose the color Nestle's. It's 0145 for my branches. That matched my fabric pretty well. So we'll put that in. Second here. And then we will stitch out the stitched branches first, and then there's going to be an applique. And while this is stitching, I might actually go start my supper. I'm going to have some supper in between these blocks. So this is sort of my normal stitching. I just kind of hang out in my sewing room and then I'll get up and have supper or something like that. So you get to just kind of be in my normal day here. So this is my normal Saturday, even though this is Christmas Eve. This is kind of my normal Saturday. I come home lots of times and do videos, and I like to sew on Saturday nights because it's quiet and I can sit and work on things, and I get off a little early from work. So, all right, so I'm going to let this stitch, and then I will come back and show you what our little twigs look like, and then we'll move on to the applique. Okay, so our little branches are all sewn, and the second step in this is going to be the placement line for the applique. There's a little applique branch right here. So we'll leave I'm going to leave the Nestle's thread in there. I got to find my piece of fabric here. And that's going to do our placement line. And then we will lay our fabric down, and then it will tack it down. It's kind of a skinny, long branch. Let's see if we can get it in here. I think we can. So we kind of have to lay it end to end because it pretty much takes the whole length here. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead, and then the next step will be tacking it down, and then we will trim it. And it's going to have a decorative outline, so I'd highly recommend using a matching thread. I usually do all the time just because I've gotten burned a few times when I didn't realize it was a decorative line, and then you could see my tack down stitches. So I just change my threads to match. Makes it easy. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this. Get this one trimmed. I have to get it a little closer to me though. I'm going to have to put my glasses on too because my thread's pretty matchy. I have a hard time with dark colored threads, especially if they're very matchy. So that's pretty good. And this is going to be decorative, so you are going to want to be pretty close to the stitches. It's kind of a skinny one. Oops, I want to pull it out of underneath the stitches. Let's see if I can get around here. Okay, there we go. And then it's going to do the decorative stitches. So the next step is going to be the decorative stitches. And this is step number 8 in the instructions, and it's step number 9 on my machine because of course I have the quilting design in there. And then we're going to move on to some more applique. All right, so we got our decorative stitches around the applique twig here. And then I think the next step is going to be, it's going to be a heart. So we're going to do, Mylar. I love Mylar. So we're going to do a placement line for the Mylar first. And I'm going to do that in my bedtime pink, which is my lighter pink. So we're going to do some hearts and stuff here. So I'm going to put my bedtime pink in. And it's going to do the placement line, and then I got to find my Mylar. The Mylar was pretty small. It's iridescent Mylar. Now the Mylar, I usually, I'm going to have it on the floor here. I usually tape this down because it has a tendency to scrunch up on me. So, and it's staticky, especially since it's so dry in the house. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on. And I am going to tape this down. I'm not a big taper, but I do usually tape Mylar down because it just likes to scoot all over the place. So I'm going to tape it over my placement line. Second, I got to get another piece of tape here. And then it's going to stitch the tack down line and the fill. And I'm going to leave the same color thread in, so that pretty pink, bedtime pink. And then we're going to do the fill and the outline or the tack down. Give me just a second here. I got a big long tail sitting here, so I'm going to trim this so it won't get stuck in my pretty fill. There we go. All right, so it's going to do a fill stitch, and then we're going to tear away the excess mylar. So it's going to do kind of a loose fill stitch, and then we'll tear away the mylar. And then we're going to do another placement line in the same color, and I think there's another little piece of a little heart that's done with fabric this time. So there's a little piece of fabric here. That's really pretty. I like that. So then we're going to tear away the excess mylar. So just be careful while you're tearing it away. Let me untape it here just a second. Maybe. Get it untaped. And then we'll just tear that away. I like Mylar. It just gives it a little bit of a shimmer. And if you have trouble getting the little pieces, there's a little piece in the divot of the, if you have a little trouble with that, just get a little pair of tweezers, and sometimes that helps. I think I got it out of there though. Okay. And then the next one's going to be the placement line for the little piece of pink fabric. So I'm using the same color. I'm still using my bedtime pink because it was also that lighter pink. It's like I got another little tail I need to trim here. Okay, let's get that little tail out of the way. And then we're going to place our heart fabric. And this one I'm not worried about it moving around because it kind of sticks to the fabric. So I'm just going to lay it down, hold it a little bit, stitch the tack down. And then we're going to trim this one, and it's going to have a decorative outline around it also. So again, this is another one that you would want to be able to, you would want to use a matching thread so that it doesn't show through. This is going to be so cute. It's going to be fun to see these all come alive because I'm going to be seeing them with you. Makes me feel like I have you all here with me even though we're on Christmas break. I just decided to try this and just turn the camera on and see if it worked out okay. All right, so then we're going to do the decorative stitch in the same color. And then I think we're going to move on to, oh, we're going to do some red. We're going to do some red. Sounds like we're having a little issue here, so I think I'm going to stop. And looks like I have a little problem with my bobbin or something, so I'm going to stop the video for a moment and back up. Okay, I think we're happy now again. For some reason my machine was just unhappy, so I put a new needle in. So sometimes if your machine's just not acting correctly, rethread the whole machine. I rethreaded, and I actually put a new bobbin in because my bobbin was almost empty. And I rethreaded it, and I also put a new needle in. So sometimes that it just takes a new needle and just to give it some TLC, and it's happy again. So there we go. That looks much better. Okay, so now we're going to, there's our little decorative stitch around that heart. That's really cute. And the next one is going to be a red heart, and this one's going to be done with the glitter vinyl. Oh, cool. This is going to be done with red glitter vinyl. So I'm going to put my red 800 red thread in. And I'm going to do the placement line, and then we're going to put on some red glitter vinyl. So that's the next one. So do this one, and let me get my red glitter vinyl ready. So when we do glitter vinyl, remember we want to take that clear plastic carrier sheet off. We don't want that on there. We want to see the glitter because that's our applique piece done. So I just took that clear piece off right here, and I'm going to throw that one away. And I'm going to lay this down over my little heart. And I am going to kind of hold this one because it does want to scoot just a little. And then it's going to do a placement line. Now this one is going to be raw edge applique, so I just did matching thread anyway, and then this one we're going to trim. Give me just a minute here. My phone decided to ring in the middle of all this as well. You know how it goes. Give me a second here. We're going to have to do a little bit of trimming, and then we're going to do I need to press this, so I'm going to press this with the iron over here and a pressing cloth. Let's see if I can get a hold of that little tail. Still have to ask Ron why I'm getting my little tails on my machine. That has something to do with the cutter. That's what we think, but I get a lot of little tails. Okay, so let's get this trimmed. I'm trimming maybe about a 1/16 of an inch away from the stitching, just to leave a little bit of the glitter on there. And then I'm going to lay this over here. Give me a second. I got to grab my pressing cloth, which is over on my ironing board. I'm going to lay this over here on my pressing pad. And I'll just tip the camera up so you can see what I'm doing here. So here's my pressing pad over here, okay? And I'm just going to lay my pressing cloth over that little piece of glitter vinyl. I've got my little mini iron. I just love this little mini iron. This is the perfect little iron to do this because it fits in all the hoops. And I'm just going to set that on there and put a little pressure on it for about 20 seconds. There we go. Okay. So we got that pressed down. And there's our little red heart. So let's see what the next step is. That one's, I like to let it cool off just a little bit before I sew again. All right. Let's see what the next step is. We got that done, and then the next one's going to be another red. So I'm going to leave the same red in there. Let's see, stitch the heart to 6 placement lines. So there's going to be another heart, but this one's going to be done in the red fabric. So I'm going to leave my red thread in there. And then we're going to do the red it's a little scrap of red fabric with little cherries on it. We're going to put that over this placement line. And this one has a satin outline. So I don't know if I can get any kind of the print on here or not. Sometimes it's hard to really get any print on the heart is so small. We'll just see if we get a little bit of print on it. Just do the little place the tack down line, and then we will trim it, and then it'll do a little satin stitch over the top. Okay. So let's put this down here, and we're going to trim pretty close so that it pretty close to the stitches, and then it's going to do this one's going to have a satin outline. Have you ever noticed when you're doing something that you don't need any phone calls, the phone decides to ring? And you know, like I told you earlier, it's Christmas Eve, and you know, why are people calling me on Christmas Eve? I have no idea. So anyway, I turned the phone off so we don't have to worry about it. Okay, so now we're going to do the satin stitch. That's the next step for this little with the little heart, and then let's see what the next one is. I think we might move on to leaves now. I'll turn the page here. Oh, there's still some more red. Stitch the hearts 2 and 8 fill. So there's a couple of hearts yet, and that they're going to be in red also. So there must be just some plain filled hearts. So we'll get this one done, and then I'll start those, and then I will turn the camera off for a moment, and then we can move on to the next part. I really like that Mylar underneath that one right there. It's pretty. Gives it just a little bit of glimmer. You can just see it through it's kind of a fill, but it's a kind of a loose fill. And you can see the glimmer through there. It's really pretty. All right. And it's going to do some filled, oh, it looks like some filled red hearts and then some filled pink hearts. All right. So I'll get this one started, and then I'll stop the camera for a moment while it's doing its little hearts. So here's the red ones. So it's going to start over here, and then there's one over on the other side too. Okay, so there's our 2 little hearts, and those are the fills, and then it says to do the hearts 2 and 8 detail. So they must be done with the pink then. So it must do some detail on the red hearts with pink. So I'm going to go ahead and put my bedtime pink back in. Oops, got my felt here. That's my lighter pink. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back on. Oh, I see what it does. It does some decorative edging around the red hearts. That's cute. And then it looks like we're going to have some hot pink hearts too. Oh yeah, so it's going to do some pink around the red, and then it's going to do some hot pink hearts also. So there's a little edging on that one. That's going to do something else too. I can't see very well in the picture what it's going to do. Looks like maybe some lace edging. That's pretty. So it's going to do it looks like it's doing some like kind of a little zigzag or a satin stitch on the edge. And then it's going to do sort of a little lacy design on this one, I think. It's pretty. Or maybe it's going to do the same thing. It's very hard to see on the screen because it's very small. Yeah, it looks like it's the same type of design. It's just kind of a satin stitch or a loose zigzag. And then a little bit on the inside too. That's cute. So that gives it just a little bit of dimension. And then we're going to do, I think it was the bright azalea. I'm not sure where that red went. I'm going to find it. Here it is. Is it? So now we're going to do some hot pink hearts. So stitch hearts 3 and 5 fill. Okay. So now we're going to do the hot pink. This has all kinds of little hearts over it. This is really cute. All kinds of little appliques and fills. Makes it fun. You don't know what it's going to look like. All right. So there's going to be the hot pink on the little branches. So I'll turn off the video for a moment while this is stitching, and then we'll be ready to start. It looks like the next thing we'll be doing is some leaves. Okay, so those little hearts were both they were little programmable fills. Those are really cute. So then we're going to work on leaves next. So I think we're going to start out with the darker color for the leaves and stitch the leaves 1 and 3 placement lines. So I'm going to go ahead and put my moss green in, which is 515. It's the darker green. So we're going to do the darker leaves first. And then we're going to do some placement lines so we know where to put the felt down. So that's what this step is going to be. We're almost done with this block already. This is really cute. And I think the tree blocks are all kind of like this, that they have, cute little things on the branches and stuff. Let's go do a couple of them. Let's see. We have 2 dark pieces of felt. Just a second, I gotta find them. So here's my felt. So here's my 2 pieces of darker felt. And then we're going to place the leaves over the placement lines. So we're going to center them over the placement lines like that. And then we're going to stitch the leaves, tack down and outer basting lines. So I'm just going to hold them in place. I'm going to watch this to make sure it doesn't catch it. So it's going to do like a basting line down the middle, and then it's going to do like a tack down line, and then it's going to do like a basting around the outside edge so that you have something to trim against. But I believe we're going to remove that basting line at the end. So I'll just go ahead and leave it in there for right now, and then we can do I think there's 4 leaves on this one. Okay, so it's going to do the same thing on this other dark leaf. And we'll trim the leaves. So it's like doing a little line in the middle to hold it on, and then it's doing kind of a basting stitch that we'll remove around the outside edge. But it needs to have something to give us the shape of the leaf for us to trim. So there we go. So now it says to trim the felt. And I'll remove the basting lines in a moment. Okay, so let's trim this. Pull this up a little bit so I can see what I'm doing here. So we'll trim this, and I'm going to leave just a little bit of felt around the outside edge so that makes the leaves just a teeny bit larger. Maybe about 1/8 of an inch or so. And the felt won't ravel, so trim that. And then we'll take that little basting line out of there, but I'll do those all at the same time when the block's done. So let's get these trimmed though and out of the way. I really like the Kimberbell felt. It's a nice solid felt. It's very sturdy. You know, it's solid and it feels nice when you trim it. It's easier to trim than some felts are. Got kind of a little funny spot down here. There we go. Okay. So there's the 2 darker leaves, and then we're going to do the 2 lighter ones, I believe, is the next one. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and change my thread to my lighter green. And then it's going to do the same type of thing. It's going to go ahead and do a placement line. Yeah, 2 and 4, it's going to do a placement line. And then it's going to do, for us to put our fabric down, our felt down. Oops. There we go. So it's going to do the placement lines. I got to find my felt. Here's my felt. So it's going to do my little placement lines, and then it's going to we'll lay this down. So we're doing the same thing that we just did, but with the other color. Okay, and then we're going to lay this felt down. Okay, and then the other one's over, where did it go? Here it is. Here. Okay. And then it's going to do the little tack down, and then it's going to go around and do the basting line like it did before. And then it's going to do the basting, and like I said, I'm going to take that basting stitch out there, but I'm going to wait till they're all done, till I'm all done. There's that one. It's going to go over and do the other one, so I'll just watch that it doesn't catch it. Okay. It's really cute. And these are going to be kind of 3-dimensional then, these little leaves, because you're going to take that basting out and then it's just caught in the center. So it's cool. All right. And then we're going to trim these. and then I'll remove the basting stitches when I'm done. And there's one more step, and it's going to be our lines to help us with the trimming. So I'm going to go ahead and trim these. I'm leaving just a little space around the outside edge. Oops. I think I did a very, very good job on that one. There we go. That looks a little bit better. This one's a lot smaller over here. So kind of go around this carefully. And we will take those basting stitches out in a moment. Now, since I've got a green in here, I think this will be able, the last step is they just said to put a visible thread in, and I think this green will show enough that I'll be able to see it. So I'm just going to leave the green in, and it's going to give us a trimming helper here. So I'm just going to stitch out the last step. Actually, the second to last step, because the last step is not stitched just like the first block we did. We'll do this one. And then we will be ready to trim. So I'll get all set up, and I'm going to take these basting stitches out first, and then I'll set it up so we can trim our block. Okay, so these last ones we don't sew. It says do not sew this step. This is the last step. Okay. All right, so I'm going to take this out of the hoop, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the basting stitches out of those. Whoops. Lay my hoop back there to get it out of the way. So I'm just going to take these little basting stitches out of my leaves so you can see what it looks like without the basting stitches. But then they're a little bit more three-dimensional because they can set up a little bit on the sides. That's kind of neat. Let's get those out of there. Just pulling those little looser stitches out. You want to leave the one in the middle in there. Oh, come on. It doesn't want to go. There we go. This is the hardest part for me, is taking out basting stitches. I've always had trouble with this. Okay. Not my favorite activity. Okay, whoops, still haven't got it loose enough. Okay. Will it come out now? There we go. So see, now when you go like that, see, then your little leaves kind of are dimensional. Okay, so I'll go ahead and take these out, and I'll show you what they look like when they're all done, and then we'll get ready to trim. Okay, so I've got my basting stitches removed from my leaves, and you can see then you can kind of, you know, push them up on the sides so that they're a little bit dimensional then, so that makes them really cute. So, okay, so now we need to do some cutting, and this has also got some specialty instructions. So it says to nest the 4.5 by 6.5, the 6.5 by 8.5, and the 8.5 by 10.5 orange pop rulers together and place them over the block. So we're going to have all of these on here. So let me get these all nested together here. So, and I bet we need to mark, gotta find my glasses here again. I bet we're going to have to place those little tick marks in the center. So those are the center marks right there. Because remember how we use the little center marks on the ruler. You can't see them very well on the camera because they're just kind of molded in there. Okay, and then we're going to lay the bigger one on here too. Okay. Oops, there we go. Okay, we got all three of them on there. Then it says use the trimming guides to center the block vertically. Align the tick marks in the trimming guides with the center marks on the ruler. So that's my center marks are right here. So it's this line, and then the little arrow is pointing right to those little tick marks. So we know we got those in the right spot. Okay. Then it says to cut the top and bottom edges of the block. Do not cut the left and right, beginning at the edge. So we're going to go ahead and turn this, because remember, I'm left-handed. So I'm going to turn it this way. And we're going to just trim along these edges right here first, because this block is going to end up 4.5 by 10.5. So we're going to cut it in here. I'm going to start up and then pull back into the corner and go forward, and then I'm going to slide it around and do the other side. Hanging on to everything. There we go. And then up this side. Okay. And then it says to remove the 2 smaller rulers. So we're going to take the 2 smaller rulers out like that. And then we're going to be trimming the 10.5 inch area, the 10.5 inch line. I think I did pretty well getting it even. So then we're going to go on the ends here. Let me push this up just a little bit. And we're going to trim on the ends here, because then that'll be the 10.5. So I'll do this side, and I'll turn it around and do this side. And up this way. Okay. Then we're going to finish connecting the lines here. So I'm going to put my pop ruler along that line, and I'm going to continue up this way and this way. And I did pretty well this time. I have trouble getting those connected. There we go. Did pretty well that time. Okay, so let's turn it over and do the other side. Okay, oops. Let's get this side done. So it's 4.5 by 10.5 is what it ends up. There's that one and this one. Like that. Okay, so there's that. And 4.5 by 10.5. Yep, got that all done. And let's see if there's any more instructions on the next page. There's not. I think we did it. There's the second block. So that's the top of the tree. That's the tree number 1, and that's the top of the tree. And now we're going to move on, and we're going to do one last block for this video. We're going to do the second tree block, which will be, there's 4 tree blocks. So we're going to do 2 of them tonight, and then we'll do 2 of them tomorrow. So I think that'll be, we'll do 4 or 3 blocks in each video. So, all right, so there's the second block, and now we're going to move on to the third one. Okay, so we're going to move on to Tree 2 block. So this is the third block we've done. And this one's going to be very similar to the last one, but it's going to move down to the next block, so some of the tree trunks and stuff are going to be a little bit bigger. So we have to get our design and our quilting sign first. So the first thing we're going to do, since I'm doing this block by block with the quilting, is I'm going to go ahead and get my quilting piece first. And it's, again, the 4 by 10 in the animal 4. So it's still the same one with the little birds on it and the twigs. Second here, I got to find the right, oops, get in the right folder here. Kimberbell Quilting, here we go. So we're going animal 4. And then we're going to get the 4 by 10. And again, we're using the block by blocks, not the clear blue tiles. We need the batting lines. And then we're going to go to 4 by 10. Let's see, 4, 4. Here's the 4s. Here, 4 by 10. So our block is going to finish 4 by 10. It's going to be 4.5 by 10.5 when we trim it. So there's that, 4.5 by 10.5, right? So it's the 4 by 10. And I'm going to hit set. And then I'm going to go get my Tree 2. And this is the one, this one's going to have the little birds on it. So I'm going to hit add down here. And I'm going to go get my little bird section here. Oops, where'd it go? Let Me Call You Tweetheart. Embroidery. And then we want the tree with the little birdies. It's this one right here. So we're going to do this one next. So it's the 2 with the little birds on it. Okay, so then these also say align the block embroidery file with the quilting design file so that both files are centered. So again, this comes in centered, the quilting, and then the embroidery design comes in um, centered. So those are all ready to go. Okay, so let me push this over here, and so we're gonna put our no-show mesh stabilizer back in the hoop here, and I've got my white thread in the needle and my bobbin thread in the bobbin, and then I've got my background fabric, and this was yet another print. I don't know if you can really see it. It's tone on tone. So there was six all these different prints, and then we're going to start out with the white thread to do the quilting. So I'm going to go ahead, and again, the first thing I'm going to set my design, and the first thing we're going to do is the quilting. So of course the first thing that happens is the placement line for our batting. And I've got my batting here. I've got all my little pieces for my appliques while this is stitching. I have some glitter vinyls. So there's some pinks and a red. There's a pink and a red piece of fabric. A bunch of little hearts and stuff we're going to be putting on this. And then we have a whole bunch of little leaves. So here's the felt for the leaves. I think there's 3 or 4. Ooh, I might have got an extra one here. So I think there might only be 3 leaves of each color. I think I have an extra piece here. So, and then there's one piece that's going to have the Mylar again, like we did before. And then we're going to use the embroidery leather for the little birds. For the little blue birds. Okay. Okay, and then I've got a piece for the tree as well. Okay, so I think this piece is wide enough that we can use this for our batting piece. Let's see here. Put this up here. And then the second step is always the tack down line for the batting. So I'm going to tack this down. And then we'll be ready to trim it and then get the fabric in there. So these blocks actually go fairly quickly. This one's going to take a little longer because it has more little applique elements in it. But the 3 blocks will all be done. We'll have our first 3 blocks done, and then we can move on to the last 3. One of the blocks has the little pennant, like a little pennant banner in it. It's really cute. So that'll be fun to make something different. But this is a pretty fast, easy project. The blocks aren't too bad. They do have a lot of little details in them, but it didn't look like it would be too bad to stitch out. All right, so we'll trim this, close to the stitches. And then we're going to do the next step. Step number 3 is always the placement line for the fabric. So get this trimmed first. Oops, I'm having some problems here today. There we go. Get these trimmed. There we go. All right, and then I'm going to do step number 3 and do the placement line for the fabric, and I've got my fabric piece here, and then this is the brown applique. This is for the tree, like we did before, but this one's going to have a little bigger applique in it, it looks like. Looks like actually quite a lot larger applique this time. There's still going to be some stitched twigs. Oh, looks like we didn't have our thread didn't catch, did it? So I think we'll be okay. I'm not going to back up since it didn't. Did you notice that it didn't catch? Sometimes it'll do that and it won't stop because there's still a thread in there and it thinks that there's thread. But I'm going to go ahead and just lay my fabric down because I know where the fabric goes. This one I can do that. Some of them I can't because you really need to know exactly where the fabric goes, but this one is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and just go on to the next one, which will be the tack down line for the fabric. It should catch better this time. It's normally, I have that trouble normally when I'm sewing on just a stabilizer. You know, with this no-show mesh, it's pretty thin, and sometimes it just doesn't like like to lock the bobbin thread and the top thread together. That looks better. Okay. And then, of course, step number 5 is always the quilting. So this one's going to quilt the little birds again with the little twigs. And move on to that. And then I'll stop the video for a moment while this is stitching and get ready for the first parts of the applique. Actually, I think we need to do the stems first. Yeah, so the branches are first and then we'll do applique. Okay, so I'm ready for the first step, which I'm going to do in the Nestle's, my brown, which is 0145 Nestle's. It's that brown. So we're going to be doing our branches for the tree. I forgot to mention that I do still have my shape flex on the back of my fabric, of course, just like so in all of my background fabrics, there's a piece of shape flex. And I still have my 8x12 hoop because this block is also the same size as the last one. So it is 4x10. So I left my 8x12 hoop in the machine. So the next step is going to be the branches. So we're going to get these started and then I will pause and come back and get ready to do the applique. So we're going to start the branches. These are a little bit bigger branches because we're moving down the tree a little bit. And then the applique is a pretty good sized applique as well. So, okay, so now we've got all of the branches. These are a lot larger branches on this part. And so the next step is I'm going to leave my Nestle's in. And then the next step is going to be the placement line for my applique fabric. So I'm going to get my brown applique fabric ready here. And it's going to do a placement line for that. This is going to be a much larger part of the tree. So this is like sort of the center portion of the tree. Okay. And then we have to kind of lay it like this to get it to, and then we'll do the tack down line. I like this brown fabric. I didn't think I had any of this left and it was hiding, so I found it. All right, let's make sure we got this all covered here. Okay, and then we're going to do, the next step will be the tack down line. This is step number 6 in the instructions. And then this is going to be another decorative outline, so make sure you use like your matching thread so that it doesn't really show through your decorative stitch. So I'm going to trim this, and then it'll do the decorative outline. I have to get my glasses for this one too. It's one of those very matchy colors that it's hard to see. I'm having trouble seeing anyway because boy are my glasses dirty. Get my glasses cleaned off a little bit so I can see better out of them. That looks better. Okay, we're going to trim these. Trim all the way around, and then this will do a decorative stitch on the edges. It's a pretty good size applique. And then we're going to start doing all the cute little, there's all kinds of little hearts and leaves and stuff on this one too. And then the 2 little birds are on this one. So cute. When I saw this, I thought, oh, I just have to make this. And I'd already planned January. So, we really needed to have done this in January. And I already had it planned, to do the cuties. And of course, we want to do those too. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do this video while I'm making it for myself. I'll just make a video and we'll just see if it works out. And then you can sew along with me if you want to. All right. Oops. Looks pretty good. All right. So now the next piece, whoops, if I turn it around the right way, there we go, will be the decorative outline. And this is going to be another one of those kind of motif stitches. So this is going to take a minute to sew, so I'll go ahead and turn the video off, and then I'll get ready for the next section, which is going to, looks like it's going to be the little birds next. Okay, so I think, oh, the next part's going to be the little beaks on the birds. So I'm going to use number 0332 pollen. It's kind of a gold yellow color, darker yellow. Oops, I'm going to have thread all over the floor here. So I'll put that one on, and then it's going to do the two little beaks for the birds, and then we'll move on to the bird appliques. All right, get our little beaks on here. And I think, oh, the beaks, and I think the little legs are next. So we're going to do those in the dark gray. My dark gray ready. And then we'll move on to the applique part. So we got one beak. There's two little blue birds sitting on here. They're so sweet. They do this little bird with the embroidery leather a lot. It's so cute. And then that's the little bird that's in the quilting too. All right, now we're going to do the legs. So I'm going to go ahead and put my dark gray in. 707 dark gray. Oh, I had to turn on the heat. I have like an electric fireplace out here. Every now and then in the winter it gets kind of cool out in my sewing room. All of a sudden I just got cold, and now I'm going to be too hot, so I have to go turn it off again, but it just takes the chill out of the air. Okay, so here's his little feet. So I'm going to do the little feet, and I'll go turn off the fireplace so that I don't roast to death now. I also put my slippers on, so that got my feet warmed up. That's always been a really good electric fireplace. It actually warms the whole room quite well, and it's one of those ones that's like a TV stand, so I have my TV on top of it. So I like it. I have one in the living room too. All right, so then, oh, the next part will be the applique for the little birds. Just a second here, let me move my Mylar. Okay, so I'm gonna get my embroidery leather ready. Looks like I've got a little jump clip here. Get that. Okay, so there's just little legs. And now we're going to move on to the placement line for the embroidery leather. So I'm going to get my teal ice thread, which is the, let's see, what is it, 1048. My teal ice, that's the color I'm going to use for my embroidery leather. So put that in, and that'll be the placement. The first one's going to be the placement line. Okay, got my leather over here ready. And it's going to do both the little birds together. Got a nice long tail there. I'll have to get that trimmed off, won't we? Get both of the placement lines on, and then, yeah, so then it does both of them together. So cute. That great big long tail out of there. Just a minute here. Got a great big long one here. There we go. Okay, so then we're going to lay our embroidery leather over the top of both of those so that we can do the tack down. So the tack down, this is going to be, yes, this is going to be raw edge applique. So we're just going to trim this. There's no satin stitch or anything. And then we're going to start doing some of the, we're going to do some of the glitter vinyls next. We'll do another one. Now when we trim the embroidery leather, I have a little trouble with it because, you know, you can see that it's white on the back. So you have to be a little careful when you trim that you don't tip your scissors too far, because then it really shows that white a lot. So I always use my scissors kind of almost straight up and down like this when I trim this, because I don't like the white to show too much. This lighter color is not so big of a deal, but some of them it really shows quite a lot. So I'm going to kind of tip my scissors almost straight up so that they're parallel. And then I'm going to trim about 1/8 of an inch away from the stitching. And I'm trying to keep them, keep it as flat as I can so that it doesn't show too much on the edge. And it could be a little closer. I'm kind of farther away than I wanted to be. So let's see. You can see what I'm doing here. Let me pull this back just a little bit. Just a little further away than I'd like to be. So let's make it just a little closer. Maybe. May have to get my glasses back on again here. But if I tip my scissors up, I do better because then it keeps it from having that beveled edge. You don't want the edge to be all bevelly. And it shows the white so much. I always have to do a lot of turning when I trim this because I have to have my hand at the right angle. I'm still not quite there with this one, so let's see if I can get it. I think I've got it now. Oh, there we go. That looks better. It's always hard to turn these big hoops in the machine. I like the smaller ones when I'm working with the machine and the camera because then you can see it better. But again, you can see I'm kind of trying to keep my scissors kind of tipped upward so that they're pretty parallel so that I'm not getting that bevel on the edge. Get some of this side so I can get it off here. And the other scissors that work really well for this, I couldn't find them. They're in my drawer somewhere. They must have gotten buried. But is my micro tip scissors work really well for trimming the leathers? Because they are, they got a smaller tip on them. And they do well too. It's harder for me to keep those tipped the right direction though. Sorry, I'm turning this a lot. It's just hard for me to keep my hand at the right angle that I want with these. There we go. That's looking better. Okay, so I got this little bitty piece down here. Okay. I'm going to do this one. Just about got it. But I find the embroidery leather a little bit difficult to trim just because you don't want that little bevel edge. So there we go. That looks pretty good. Got a couple little rough spots. Let's see if I can get this one just trimmed off the edge there a little bit. That looks better. Okay. Now the next part is so we are going to move on to the pink with the glitter vinyl. So we're going to do some glitter vinyl. So it's the hot pink, so it's the azalea. 0012 bright azalea. So it's kind of my hot pink. And that's the color of the glitter vinyl. Because this is the first two pieces of glitter vinyl. So we'll get the kind of hot pink here. And then I'm going to do these. This will be for the placement lines. Gotta find my little pieces of glitter vinyl here. Oops, second here. There's a lot of little pieces for this one. There we go. So here's my little hot pink pieces. And I'm going to remember to take the little clear cover sheet off. We don't want that on there. Let's see if I can get it off, though. I'm having trouble getting it off. It's trying. Come on. There it goes. Okay, so there's one of them. Get the other one off here. Place hearts 1 and 6 glitter right side up. Okay, so we're going to do these. There we go. Well, those were tough ones. All right, so it looks like it's going to start over here. So I'll lay this over this. I'm just going to hold it there until it starts, and then I can lay this one over here. There it goes. Get the little tail out of here. Okay, and then it's going to come over here and get this one. So I'll just kind of lay it down, and here it goes. These I always kind of hold. I'm not a big taper, so sometimes you do have to tape depending on what you're doing. But all right, so then we're going to trim these close to the stitches, and then these are going to be ones that we're going to go up. We're going to go ahead and press these down with our pressing cloth. So I'm going to get these trimmed, and we'll press these down with the pressing cloth. I got a little beveled edge on this bottom. I don't know if I can get rid of it now, but it'll just have to stay there. Okay, so let me get these trimmed, and then we'll press them down. I like the pink. I didn't have the exact color that they called for, so this was pretty close, though. It's not quite as dark. I have a lot of glitter vinyl, so I buy it to use with my scan and cut too, and I have a lot of it, and I usually have what I need. This was just in my little scrap basket. I keep all the scraps. Keep all your scraps of the stuff, because sometimes you don't need very much. I mean, you can see there's just very little that you need for these. I actually did cut these. I normally just kind of take a piece and lay it down, you know. I did actually cut these because I cut a kit for Judy also. So I did actually cut these to the size they said, because I wasn't sure exactly how much I needed, and I didn't want her to be short, so I just went ahead and cut them the actual size. But you can just use scraps most of the time for these little pieces, because they're very generous with especially their vinyl pieces. But it is nice to have a little something to hang on to too when you're holding it down. So okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead, and I've got my little iron over here. I'll just lay this over here on my table, my ironing table. I'll just tip the camera up so you can see what I'm doing. I'm gonna lay my pressing cloth on here, and then I'm just going to press those two with my little mini iron. I'm just going to press them down and hold them for about 15-20 seconds. The other one's over here. I have to do them separate. Make sure I hit it here. There we go. And get those pressed down. That's why I love this iron, because then it fits in the hoops. It even fits in that little 4x4 hoop, which is nice, because I've used it lots of times in there. Okay. So the next little heart is going to be what? Let's see. What are we doing next? I think it's the red. Oh, it's going to be the little red one. So I'm going to put my red thread in, my 800 red. It's going to be the one with the red piece of fabric here. So, okay. So we'll do that one next. So cute. They did this one just a little differently than a lot of their pillows, because, you know, each of the blocks have been kind of like standalone, but these kind of all go together. So like there's 4 different, you know, there's 6 blocks, but they all kind of go together to make one scene. So it's a little bit different. Okay, so this is the placement line. This is step number 19 on page 17. And it's the placement line for the red cherry fabric. So we'll put that down, and then we're going to tack it down. See if I can get some of the print in. I doubt it, but I can try. Not a very big heart, is it? To get those big cherries in there. I don't know. Let's put it in there. That looks good. Trying to kind of get some of the print on it. All right, and then we'll trim that. And I think this one has some sort of a. Not sure if this one has a tack down, trim close. Not sure if this has like a satin stitch or if it's just raw edge. I think the other ones were raw edge, or had some sort of a stitch around it, but I'm not sure about this one. Okay, so we're going to trim this one. So trim the close to the stitch line. So maybe it's going to come back and do something else on it. Or it could just be raw edge, who knows. That's not what the next step is. The next step is something else. See, it's a surprise for me too. So there's that one. And then get back in here. What's the next step? Let me turn the page. So I'm on page number 18 now. So I can get the page to turn. And we're going to do, oh, this is going to be the pink. So I'm going to put my bedtime pink in. So my light pink. And then we're going to start doing some of these. And then we're going to do a Mylar one too. So here's the bedtime pink. So we're going to do the fabric heart first, and then the Mylar heart, all in the same color. Let me find my fabric here. Trying not to lose my Mylar because it's got so much static. So we're going to put this one down and tack it down. And this one has a decorative stitch, so again, make sure you're using matching thread so that it doesn't show through your decorative stitch. And then we'll trim it. I like how they make the hearts, the little leaves on the tree. They put leaves too, but I thought it was cool that they put the hearts on. Okay, so we're going to trim this one. And then this one's going to have a decorative, this one's going to have like a motif stitch around it. Okay, whoops here. Let's see if I can get around here. This one has a lot of little pieces. Got a little spot here that needs to be trimmed. There we go. Okay. Then we'll do our little decorative stitch. That's the next part, is the decorative stitch. And then we're moving on to the Mylar. So we're going to do the same color. A little decorative stitch, and then we'll do the Mylar heart. And then we're going to go back to glitter vinyl again. There's a whole bunch of little vinyl and stuff on this one. I had to find some iridescent Mylar. That's my favorite kind. And I had to hunt through my little stack. I finally found a piece. I didn't need very much, as you can see. There's two little pieces about this size. Okay, so then the next piece is going to be the placement line for this. And then we'll put this down, and it's going to do like the fill and the tack down line. Now this I think I'm going to tape, because this stuff just scoots terrible, so I am going to tape it. And it's so staticky tonight. It's very dry in here. Tape that. There we go. Okay. So now it's going to do the fill and the tack down line for the Mylar. And then we'll remove the Mylar. And I think we need to get ready then for the a red heart. So I need to remember to take my plastic cover sheet off again of my red here. So I'm going to pull that off my red glitter. There's my little piece that I need. And we'll go back to the red thread. Really cute. I like that Mylar a lot. Okay, so we'll take this tape off of here, maybe. It'll let me have it. And then we're going to pull this away. See if I can get it all off here. There we go. Okay. So got that, and then the next one's going to be the red. So I'm going to switch. Whoops, can't get the Mylar to come off my fingers. My hands are so dry. All right, so now we're going to go back to the red thread. So then 800 red to do our red heart. Oops, there we go. Do a placement line first so we can put our glitter vinyl on. So that's the next step, is the placement line for the red glitter vinyl. And this is going to be, I think this one's going to be raw edge also. Okay, so then we'll lay this down and do our tack down, and then we'll trim. And of course we need to press again. Get my glasses out to do this one. Boy, this one's really matchy. Okay. So trim this one. Turn it around this way. Press this one too. I think that's it for the glitter vinyl now. I think there was just 3 on this one. This is the one that had the most little pieces, I think. This block. Okay, here's the heart. Kind of a flat side on it though here. Probably better fix that, huh? Before we iron it down. Okay, let me get that ironed down. I'm just going to stand up and press it real quick with my pressing cloth. Sure I get the right one. Okay, looks pretty good. All right. And then the next one is going to be, what does it say here? Stitch the heart 7 fill. So it's just a heart that we're going to, and we're going to leave the red in for that one. So there's going to be a heart down here, and it's just going to be a filled heart. So we're going to let that one stitch, and then I think it's going to do the outline on the one over here. That I wasn't sure if it was right, but it is going to do an outline over here. Okay, so we just finished up doing the satin stitch on the fabric heart over here, and we did the fill over there. But now we're going to put the bedtime pink, the light pink back in, and it's going to do the little detail on the heart, and then also do some stitch detail on the other heart as well. So I'm going to put my lighter pink back in, and we will do the heart details. I love the little stitches on the satin stitches when they do that. I don't know why it's sewing there. Just a minute. It's supposed to be sewing. Let's see what step I'm on to make sure I got it right. I did the red. Stitch the red satin outline. Oh, wait a minute. Make sure I got the right thing. I think there's one more red. I missed a red. Just a minute here. Let me cut. Oops, cut this. I think I missed one. Did the satin. Oh, there is another one here. Just a minute. So I got to put my red back in for a minute. I missed a heart. There's just an outline heart here. Oh, I see what it did. Okay, so it did the satin stitch here, and then it's just going to do a satin stitch heart, and then it's going to do the little decorative stitch on that one. There was a whole bunch of reds in a row, so I missed one. Yeah, so it's going to do like a little satin stitch heart here, and then I'm going to put the pink in. Yeah, just do an outline, like a satin stitch outline on the heart. That'll be cute. And then it's doing the pink on that, and then it's going to do some decorative pink on the plain heart over on the other side. Okay, now I understand. See, I told you I haven't done this either, so I have to be paying attention when I'm reading. Sometimes I have a little trouble with that. And then we'll put our pink in. I think it has to put some little wings on the little birds yet, too. Okay, so now we're with the pink. Put that in there. Let's see, pink, and then it's going to do the other decorative pink. We get the red out of the way. But I just thought you might like to see the whole thing. I just decided just to sit here and tonight and just turn the video on while I'm making this, and I'll just talk you through it, and then you'll have a surprise video for between Christmas and New Year's. And I can make this little pillow that I wanted to make. I've been wanting to make it, so I saw it and I thought, oh, that's so cute. Okay, and then it's going to go over and do the same color, and it's going to do the decorative stitch over on the other side, the heart over here, this plain part. So it's going to do some decorative on there. And then let's see, I think we're going to turn the page to page 19, and it's going to do a fill with the bright azalea. So I have to find my hot pink. There's all kinds of little hearts on this one. Find my bright pink, and then that is going to be a little heart also. Okay, do another heart, and then I think we're going to go back. Oh, they are going to do the eyes on the little bird and also his wings. That's the next steps. So I got to pay attention what's going on here. There we go. So then we're going to do the leaves. There's a whole bunch of little leaves on this one. So this is a little fill, and then I'll come back when this is done, when we're ready to do the little birds and the little eyeballs on the birds. All right, so we're ready for the wings on the birds, and this is light blue, 1226. So we're going to put the light blue in for the wings, and then his little eyes are going to be dark gray. So put this in, and I'll show you the little wings get started here, and then we'll move on to the eyes. I like to go through each step so that you know what colors I'm using. The colors are actually in the book, so as you're looking at the book, and you see these the little color spots here. They are a little sometimes hard to tell what color it is, so they have kind of a little, they have like a little legend or whatever in the front, to kind of a list of them so that you know what colors they are. All right, so I'll be back in a minute when the little wings are done, so that we can move on to the eyes. Okay, so I've got his little eye, the little eyes on the birds, and their little wings are all done. And now we're going to move on to the last couple of colors are going to be the leaves. So we're going to do some leaves with the felt like we did on the first tree block. And so the first ones are going to be done in the moss. So a second here, I got to get my moss green here. That's my darker green and my darker colored felt. So I'm just going to get this ready, and there's going to be some placement lines for those. Second here, I got to put my hoop back in. So they're going to have some placement lines for those 3 pieces of felt. And we're going to do these just like we did the other ones. Just has a placement line for each one, and then it's going to go back and do like a basting stitch and another like a tack down stitch down the center, and then we'll trim them after they're all done. Just doing the little placement lines. See, I think there's 4 of the lighter colored one. There's only 3 of the darker one. Now it says to tape these down. I'm not going to tape them. I'm just going to do, I think it's going to start on the end one here, so I'm going to lay it down, and then I'm going to lay it down over the top of that, and then this one down, and then this one down, and I'll just kind of watch them and hold them as I'm going. So it's going to do the tack down line, and then do the little baste, and we'll remove the basting stitches when we're done. Now it's going to do the little basting stitches around there so you can trim. Really like the little birds, they're cute. Okay. And it's going to move on to this one, so just kind of watch it. The foot goes up enough so that you shouldn't have any trouble with it catching or anything, but you just kind of want to watch them. I'm not a big taper. I don't like, especially with felt, because I have trouble with the felt kind of pulling away with the tape. So I don't really like to tape felt down. just doing the little base. That was a little tiny leaf. And then this is the last one, and then it's going to do the light. Then we'll do the lighter colored ones. So that should be fine. Okay. And then we'll get my pieces ready for the lighter colored leaves. It's going to do the base. Okay. So I am going to go ahead and trim these, and I'll turn the camera off while I'm doing that. Again, I trimmed fairly close to the stitches. I left just a little edge, and then I'll pull out the basting stitches at the end. Okay, so I've got my little leaves trimmed. I haven't taken the basting stitches out yet. I'll just leave them in until I'm ready. I can do all of them at the same time. So we'll put this back in, and I'm going to switch over now to my fresh green for there's 4 of the lighter colored leaves on this one. So I'll get this thread out of the way and put in my fresh green, which is 027. And we'll do the placement stitches for the last 4 leaves. Okay. Get my leaves ready here. So it's going to do the 4 placement stitches. Boy, this one had all kinds of little stuff on it, didn't it? This was a fun one. And the next one has quite a few little things on it too, I think. So we'll do some more tomorrow, but I think the next one is Tree 3, and it has lettering and just a few little decorative things on it. Not as many as the last 2. So we got 1, 2, just the 3rd one or the 4th one? This is the 3rd one, I guess. See where we're going to start here. Here we go. So probably will start over there, so I think that's where we'll lay the first piece, over there. So we'll lay our lighter colored green felt back here. Okay, and then there's one here. Got to see where they are here. Okay, and there's one here next to the little birds, and one up here. Like that, I think. There we go. Okay, so we'll just have to kind of watch them. If they don't move, I think they'll be fine. We'll just watch them. It's going to do its little tack down, and then it'll do the baste. These are cute. I like the 2 colors of green. It's going to go. Is it going to go do this one? Yeah, go do this one first. Should be fine. It's nice if since they give you just a little bit larger piece of felt, then you don't have to really worry about it too much. You just have to kind of watch them. Just don't want it to catch. And do the basting stitch. And then I'll go ahead and take all the basting stitches out off camera, and then we'll do the trimming. We're just about done with this one, and then we'll do some more. We'll do some more tomorrow. I've been enjoying working on this. This is something I've never tried this before with a video, so I thought, well, we'll just give it a try and see if I can do it. Because I normally like to, spend the time doing the entire project and have it under my belt so I know what I'm doing. So I thought, well, we'll just give it a whirl and see if we can do this. Yeah, that looks good. And here's another one. We've got one last one to do. But this one didn't look too bad. I kind of read through the directions and I thought, okay, I can do this one, I think. So I didn't feel like I absolutely had to do a sample first. I thought I could probably do it. All right, and then it's going to do the basting. And then I will do the trimming, and I will take the basting stitches out, and then we'll get ready to do the, the last step. I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off for a minute while I trim this, and then we do need to do one last step because it's going to give us another one of our trimming lines again to help us with the trimming. Okay, so I finished taking the little basting stitches out of the little leaves. You can see now that I can kind of make them 3-dimensional. And then the final step is that little trimming line again with the little tick mark on it, so we know where the center is. And then the very last step, it says not to sew that. That's just for stitch placement. So I didn't stitch that one out. And so now I'm ready to trim my block. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out of the hoop, and I'm going to set up my little cutting area, and then we'll cut the final block here for the evening. All right, so we're ready to trim the third block. And this one's going to be, it looks like it's going to be done the same way as the last one. So we're going to nest all three of these orange pop rulers together. So I got all three sizes, and we're going to line up the trimming guides to the center of the small one here. I got to get my glasses on because it's pretty small to see those little arrows, but you get the little arrows on those little tick marks right there. And then it's nice and centered. So we get that right on there. Make sure they're centered up and down. It looks pretty good. And then we're going to go ahead and put the middle one on. Whoops, maybe. Get those kind of ready to go on there. Looks like I got kind of crooked here. There we go. Okay, and then put the big one on. But it's nice to have something to hang on to. That's why they made the rulers like this. It gives you some space to hang on to. Okay, so let's see, make sure we got the little arrows lined up. Looks like they're pretty good. And then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut the sides, the top, the top and the bottom of the block here. So I'm going to make sure that I kept it lined up. It's very hard to see those little arrows. There we go. That looks better. Okay. Then I'm going to gotta open my rotary cutter here and get that all lined up, and then I'm going to go along the long sides. This one, that, okay, and then it says to remove the two smaller rulers. And then we're going to cut the outside. Looks like I might have gotten just a little bit off here. So let's see if we can get it lined up a little bit better. And we're going to do these two sides. Let me push this up a little bit. Do the two ends, because this one's going to end up being 4.5 by 10.5 as well. Okay, so lay this aside, and then we're going to get the ends done here. Let's see. Looks like I got a little crooked. I have a hard time with the getting these cuts made. I have more trouble doing these than I do anything. There we go. So let's get this straightened out. There. Okay. That side. Let's turn this side around. Those were complicated cuts. You have to use all the rulers. I love the orange pop rulers though. I finally it took me a while to get used to them because you were cutting on the inside. If you have trouble with the inside cutting, you can always just draw like with a water soluble marker and cut with a regular ruler if you like. I've gotten used to them though. You just have to kind of practice with them. I've had a lot of practice because I've made a lot of things that I use them with. So there we go. Okay. I need a new rotary blade. Okay, so there is our third block, and I'll show you the other two. So here's this one. So this one's going to go on top of this. So these will sew together like that. So they'll come together like that with the tree, the top of the tree, okay? And then this one's going to kind of be over here on the side. This one goes over here, I think, on the side. Down, it's going to be down though. This one's going to be down at the bottom, but it goes on the side. So there's our first 3 blocks of Let Me Call You Tweetheart. So I'll come back with the second video will be the next 3 blocks. There's only 6 blocks, so we'll do 2 videos with the blocks and do one with the flanges and borders and one to put it together. So I will see you next time for the last 3. I think it's Tree 3, Tree 4, and then the love banner. And that's the ones we'll do in the second video. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.